the domain and range worksheet. Here we go. You know what? So the domain, answer for me. The domain of a graph, a set of ordered pairs or a table, is all of its x values. X values. X values. And the range of a graph, a set of ordered pairs or a table, is all of its y values. All right. So this says what is the domain. So let's look at this. Actually, let me move this up a little bit better. Here we go. So the domain of this guy is going to be all of the x values of the points on the graph. Are you with me? So there's several of them. So all I have to do is list them. So when I'm listing these, I want to put them in a fancy bracket. So when I'm reporting what the domain is, I always go from left to right. So as I'm coming from left to right, what's the first point that I happen upon? This one right here. What is the x value of that point? -3. What's the x value of the next point after -3? -2. Keep going. -1. 0. 2. So that is what the domain is of those dots. Does that make sense? Now let's do the range. The range of the y values. Now, when I'm doing domain, I go from left to right. When I'm doing range, I go... No, I don't go. I go bottom to top. Bottom to top. So so the range here, what's the lowest value? 0. So fancy bracket, 0. What's the next highest value? 1. What's the next highest? 4. What's the next highest? Guys, the only tricky part about this is that you have to understand. Hold on. What?
7th graders, as a reminder, we're using the outside, the track field, the blacktop, the backfield, the oxygen, and the library. Those
That's
are
fine.
the only areas of the school that we're using for the Raven rally. Upon the direction of your teacher, you may proceed to those areas. Thank you very much.
All right. So here's the only tricky thing, guys. The only tricky thing is that you got to understand when it's asking for the domain, it's asking for the x values. And when it's asking for the range, it's asking for the y values. Got me? Let's continue. This guy, this time it gives me a table. So guys, what is my domain here? Yep. What's my range?
0, 2, 1.
This is doing in the order that it gives it. It's 3, 1. It's on your paper too, by the way. What happened? What happened to him? What? What? Because a 9. Here we go. Guys, what is, so in this one, in this relation, gives me 4 ordered pairs, and tell me what the domain is. Go.
Domain is 1, 3, 5, and 7.
That's right. 1, 3, 5, and 7. How about the range?
2, 4, 6, 2.
Now, do you have to report 2 twice? Absolutely not. You only have to do it once. So just 2, 4. Wouldn't be wrong. It's just kind of awkward. It's like when somebody asks you what your name is, you say, "Oh, my name's Mr. Marquis, Mr. Marquis."
My name's Brian.
It's not wrong. Just saying your name twice. Like, why would you say it twice? It's weird.
But my name's Catherine, and then you forgot. But if my name's Catherine,
Let's look at this next. Let's look at this next problem. It's a good one. It says write a set. Write a set of ordered pairs with the domain of that and the range of that. So I'm going to take those domain or the domain and the range and form them into ordered pair. So what could be the first ordered pair? 2, 8. That's exactly right. As I'm writing these, I'm going to cross them off just to keep track of what I've used and what I haven't. What's the next ordered pair? 8, 15. You guys agree? What's the next ordered pair? 10, 7. Very good. What's the next ordered pair? -2, -25. Very good. Now, I have an extra range value that I have not used yet. What do you think we're going to do then?
0.
Guys, 0 is a number, and 0 is not part of the domain. So I can't just say 0 is part of it just because I feel like it. I just have to use another domain value again. So no, 1's not in there. Let's just use 8. So 8, 6. I could have used any of the domain values. Are you with me?
But then that would mean that 8 is cheating.
Right. So that means, listen, so now it's no longer a function. That's a very good observation. However, even if something is not a function, it still has a domain and a range. Got it? The domain and the range is not at all exclusive to only functions. That's not how it works. All right, we're not, so here's where, so that was kind of the easy, yes. I could have chosen any of these domain values. I could have done 10, 6, I could have done 2, 6, I could have done -2, 6. Got it? All right, now we're going to talk about, it's not necessarily more, just, we'll see. So what we've done so far is we've had points like this, and we just simply said, so you guys tell me, what would the domain be? What would the domain be of this? -5, -3, -1, and what would the range be? No, you always start bottom to top when doing range. -7, -1, 1, and 3. Okay, but what happens if there aren't just dots, they're actually connected? Which means that now it's not just the dots that are part of the domain and the range. Now it's every single point that's in between. So my question is, how long, so we're going to do the domain first. How long do you think it would take you to list all of the values between -5 and 3? It's probably about 3 lifetimes. That's a decent answer. 5 minutes. Anybody else? 15 minutes. Infinitive. Anybody else?
No, it has something to
Well, let's do a little. Let's.
for the sun to fall out of the sky and burn and destroy this planet.
As long as it takes the sun to fall out of the sky and destroy the planet. All right, let's do this. So I'm trying to see. Let me make sure. All right, so let's count. Let's do a little mini lesson here. Let's count all of the values between -5 and 3. Would you guys agree that -4 is part of this? How about -3? How about -2? -1? Whoops. Guys, 0. Let's move this. Let's make this 1. Let's make this 2, and let's make this 3. All right. So, are there any more? Yeah. How about here? How about -4.5? How about -3.5? Yeah? -2.5? How about -1.5? How about -0.5? How about 0.5? How about 1.5? All right, are these values in between -5 and 3 as well?
There's an infinite amount of numbers in between 0 and 1.
So that's a good observation. Guys, I could go on all day writing decimals that are between -5 and 3. I could literally do it all day. I could do it all day tomorrow. and the next day. In fact, if I spent the rest of my lifetime trying to write down all of the numbers between -5 and 3, I would not even come close. Not come close. It's impossible. There are an infinite amount of numbers between -5 and 3. Okay? So, mathematicians realized this, right? So they developed a way to report what the domain is without having to list all of the numbers. Here's what they figured out. They said, instead of listing all the numbers, we're just going to say the domain is from here to here, and all the numbers in between. So here's what that looks like. The domain for this guy, you do a fancy bracket, x, and then a bar, and then here we go. The domain is from -5. All of my x values are bigger than that, and they're all smaller than what? That is the domain. This is saying your x values, which are your domain values, are all of the numbers between -5 and 3.
Mr. Cavendish taught us this in math lab.
Cool. The range is what? From where to where? The lowest point is at -7. And then how high does it go? 3. That's what the range would be. Does this make sense? Yes, for what we're doing this year, yes. These inequalities will always be facing that direction. Okay? Let's do another. Yeah. Hold on. Let's do this. Let's do the domain, guys. What would the domain be? From -5 to where? To 2. So I do -5. Done. What would the range be? From -1 to 2. That easy. Make sense? Here's where it gets a little bit. Here's where it gets. I don't have to close it. You don't close it on here. Here's where it gets a little bit trickier. Let's say I have something that looks like this. All right. Let's do the domain. Now, in this case, my domain goes from -4 to where? All the way to positive infinity. Good question. So if you think about it, all of your domain values, all of your x values are going to be greater than or equal to -4. That's how you write it. So think about what this says. All of the numbers that are greater than or equal to -4 are the domain. The range would be all of the numbers that are greater than or equal to what? 1. Yeah. Whenever there's not an arrow and it's limited, discrete, we would say. But when there's an arrow going forever, you got to really think about it. Well, in order for it to go the other way, it would have to look something like this. Let's do the domain. The domain for this guy would be all of my domain values are what? 1 or smaller. So all of my domain values are less than or equal to 1. And all of my range values are 3 or smaller. So all of my range values are less than or equal to 3.